City and community leaders are reacting following the announcement that a homeless encampment in Bangor will be closed by the end of the year.
Photojournalist Mark Redeker and I went out to Camp Hope for more.
Moving people along, sweeping them away without housing and without having their voices and their perspective and their insights as part of the decision-making process is a recipe for failure.
Penobscot County Care's co-founder Doug Dunbar says he visits the encampment near Cleveland Street and Texas Ave in Bangor at least once a week. He has major concerns following the city's announcement it's set to be closed by the end of the year.
Closing an encampment has to be done with extraordinary care. And number one, you have to be able to provide housing.
Our goal is that we find a better living situation for everybody who's there.
City officials say the process of closing Camp Hope relies on the ability to connect the encampment's 73 residents with support services and housing. Among the options, treatment centers, shelters, or permanent housing. 41 units at the former Pine Tree Inn, soon to be Teresa's Place under Panquist ownership, are anticipated to open by the end of the year.
We're going to be really open to the types of housing that will have the highest opportunity for an individual to succeed. We'll be engaging with encampment residents so that we make sure that they're part of these discussions and solutions as well.
The city cites drug use and trafficking, a rise in violent crime, and other health and safety concerns as reasons to close the encampment. Dunbar shares in that ultimate goal, but feels there were many missed opportunities in the past, as well as a better way forward.
We come together with all interested parties, including the voices and the perspectives and the ideas of the people who live here, come together and start a new beginning. And over time, work to close down this encampment.
We spoke with one member of the encampment who didn't want to go on camera. He shared he's currently in survival mode, but welcomes a chance at stable housing, saying it would be life-changing. Additional city meetings on the encampment closure are scheduled for next week.